guys, and welcome back to another Remembering Forgotten Memories episode. So this one isn't so much a story time as it's more just me kind of waxing poetic more or less about just thinking about stuff from my childhood and being like, damn, I kind of really miss those days and how magical it felt back then versus as an adult where it's a lot of the allure long ago rubbed off and is just lost to time, but as a kid it felt so magical and so different. So I mean, it's no secret, unless you're new here, in which case, hi, hello. I grew up on a horse ranch. I still live on it, but actually, different house, but same property. But for those who are unaware, you feed horses twice a day, therefore you go in the morning and you go in the evening. And I mean, it's a totally different vibe being there from one end of the day to the other end of the day. And that probably on one hand sounds super obvious, but unless you have lived it, I don't think I can really fully explain how different that vibe might be. And that vibe shifts from exactly what hour you might choose to do them in. Because I mean, morning hours, I mean, if you're really overambitious and you go crack of dawn, that's a whole ass vibe of its own right there, versus a more reasonable 9, 10, 11 a.m. Whole different animal, whole different beast. But then, depending on when you go for the evening feeding, it also depends on the time of year, because, summertime is different because it stays light at, it's still light at, 9 p.m. this time of the year, but, wintertime, 4 something, it's already dark out. So, basically, the layout of the land on which I live, it's a family estate where, there's our house, there's my uncle's house, there's my grandparents' house, and there's the barn that's kind of in the middle of all of them, as well as all of the pastures, the arena, that's its own separate dealio in the middle of it all, and because of that, it made it a central point, still is, I suppose, but, since I would spend most of my time after school as a kid at my grandparents' house versus at home, at least in my formative years anyway, then I hit my moody teens and didn't nearly so much, and I kick myself for it now, because I would pretty much give anything to have spent more time there than I did in those years, but can't go backwards, can only go forwards. But regardless, as a kid, pretty much be alright, my grandparents would be the ones to pick me up from school, unless it was Monday, in which case my other grandparents would. But any other day of the week, my grandparents would pick me up from school, and we'd usually run errands first, be it the bank, the supermarket, Kinko's back when that was a thing. If my grandpa had to go out to the apartment house to, oversee what my dad and my uncle were doing, whatever the case may be, sometimes the courthouse. We'd knock those out first. Sometimes it was quick, sometimes it was one stop. Oh, can't forget the post office. Post office was usually mine, because my grandpa always had to pick up his mail. We'd run those. We'd come back to the house. I would have a snack first. Maybe watch a little bit of TV. Usually they would try to get me to do my homework. Whether or not they succeeded in that effort, or if I would lie about it, remained to be seen. And then it'd be time to go down to the barn and feed the horses. And depending on the weather, the time of year, how much time we had to throw at it, would determine, are we just feeding the horses? Are we bringing some of them out to exercise? And are we bringing some of them out to ride them? Could be a totally different thing. But depending on what time of year it was and how dark it was, such a different vibe. Because I mean, I think my favorite was when it would be right at twilighty dusk, that purpley sky where it's not quite totally dark out, you still got residual sunset going on as the backdrop over the mountains on the horizon and everything, as you're walking down that hill to the barn, and just having this moment of, isn't the world a beautiful place? And I realize that's such a privileged-ass thing to say, because I know not everyone has that experience. I don't take it for granted that I grew up with that. I am forever grateful. It's one of the things I'm the most grateful for in my life that I got to grow up with. And I'd walk down there, we'd be talking about whatever. We'd go into the barn, we'd feed the horses, usually, as a kid, usually my grandma, or my grandpa, depending on which one went down that day, would be the one up in the hayloft, pushing the hay down into each trough in the stalls below, because that's the way we have our barn set up, is like, there's the upstairs level where all the hay lives, and there's the doors above each stall that you just slide that feeding down into. It lands in the trough below, all streamlined, beautiful. They did not want me up there as a little kid because they were scared that A, I would either clumsily fall down one of those, or B, that I might lean on the railing over the middle of the barn and possibly fall off that way and break something. To my credit, neither of those things has ever happened. Just throwing that out there, but apparently there was a point in time where both of them happened to my grandma, and it's why they had, like, a hang-up about it. Now, they would do that. I would go down to, like, at one end of the barn. Okay, I should probably give the layout. Walk in the barn. Both sides, 4 stalls on each side. The back wall was all the lockers with, like, the tack, the saddles, all that stuff in them, all the grooming materials. One of them led out the back side of the barn to where you would dump the manure down the manure pile. Which, I mean, that sounds gross in theory, but you have to remember we also have our own crops, so that manure is used for fertilizing those. So there is a point to it, rather than just being like, why don't you dispose of it properly? No, it serves a purpose. It serves a purpose. So there'd be that, but then the one over to the far right of those lockers had what I can only describe as, what would I describe it as? Not identical to, but not entirely dissimilar to, you know those plastic bins that you roll out to the street for your garbage and your recycling? Kind of one of those, but filled with grain. And there's a coffee cup, or not a coffee cup, I'm sorry, a coffee can, not the biggest size, no, the one that's about like that big around, about that tall, whatever size you would call that lives in there, and you scoop out one of those, level off the top, and you put it alongside the hay into its own little receptacle, I don't know what else to call it really, in each of the stalls, so they can all have their grain alongside their hay, and then you give them their alfalfa and their happy horses, whatever. So, take care of that right off of the bat. And then, depending on if it had already been seen to for that day or not, might be time to muck out the stalls, might be time to brush some or all of the horses, or, if I were really lucky, we get to bring at least one of them up to the arena and either exercise them or ride them. And that was my favorite as a little kid, especially if it involved riding them, be it directly or by pony cart. Both were options. I wish I knew what happened to the photos my grandma took of those days, because she had her little, like, Instamatic camera she would bring with her. I don't know whatever happened to those. I'm not sure I ever saw the photos that came from those, but she always had it with her, so I'm like, they have to be somewhere, right? Like, there were so many of them over the years, but regardless. So we'd go up there, but, like, here's the thing. You do that when it's daylight out, it's like you think nothing of it. You do that when it's dark out, and you are suddenly hyper aware of every teeny tiny sound. You are aware of the sound of gravel under the horse's hooves. You are aware of just the sound of everyone breathing. You are aware of if you hear a coyote in the distance. You're aware of, like, the distant sounds of traffic way off. You're aware of every teeny tiny little thing. And it does not take much to spook the fuck out of you when it's dark out and you go up there. Which is why, for over the arena, my grandpa installed this thing on just one post, but essentially, I don't know how else to describe it, but, like, you know, stadium lighting? That, pointed down over the arena. I think he originally, at one point in time, had one at each end, but one burnt out and he never fucking replaced it. The other one, still there to this day, still functional. But it's like, you turn those on and oh, suddenly it goes from nighttime into day, at least in the arena. Everything else is pitch black and scary as fuck out there, but at least if you're in the arena, it is well lit. So, scaredy-ass little me is in there with my horse, or my pony, depending which we had out there that day. And I'd be riding up a storm for like a good hour or two at least, and eventually we'd put the horses back away and go back to the house for dinner. However, this is where I would always be like a little scaredy cat every damn time. If I was with my grandma, she would she would turn the stadium lights on the way down to the barn. Whether or not we were even going to take a horse out, she knew I could not hang with the dark. She would turn it on just for my benefit, and on the way back to the house, she would turn it off. And I would run like the little puss that I am all the way back to the house and just wait for her on the porch where it was well lit and everything. If I was with my grandpa, however, he might not turn them on at all. Like, it was not uncommon for him to just leave it off and be like, you're fine. It is exactly the same as it is during the daytime. It's just not light out. There is nothing different right now than there is when the sun is out. So don't be scared of it. Easier said than done when you are terrified of the dark. And I wish I could say that was just a little kid thing. It has followed me well into adulthood, and frankly, I have had multiple experiences that have told me I am right to be scared of the dark. There is scary things in the dark that aren't there during the day. Now, that said, it's scary enough walking down that big-ass hill to the barn in the dark, but at least, if nothing else, there's a light on outside the front of the barn 24/7, so there's always some amount of light going that direction. But going back to the house, if those lights are off, you're walking up what feels like a mountain, at least as a little kid, in the pitch black, where every sound feels like it is major league amplified. And basically, those were the times where I'd be simultaneously both scared for my life, but also too scared to run off ahead of him to run back to the house, and would usually just start crying because I couldn't fucking hang with the dark. And he thought he could just, like, train it out of me by doing it over and over again, and it never worked, and I am 40 and I am still scared of the dark, so, hey, hi, Grandpa, that didn't work, but anyway, he's probably gonna haunt me now. Anyways, he wasn't doing it to be mean, he genuinely thought he was helping. Unfortunately, it did not work out that way. Maybe for some kids it does. For me, it did not. And I mean, especially as I got to, like, the moody tween phase, like 9, 10, 11, and I would initially go down to the barn, and he'd be, like, taking his sweet time, be like, oh my god, I'm hungry, I kind of just want to go back to the house and have dinner. I'll meet you back up there. I would say that, in the safety of the perfectly well-lit barn, and he'd be like, okay, but if you get scared, you know you can come back, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I would feel all vindicated, and I'd make it about halfway up that hill, and I would hear, like, one dog bark in the distance, and I'd be running back to the barn. Never mind, I changed my mind, I'm scared, I'll just wait for you. Okay, you can do that, that's fine. Fine, I will. I'd sit on the stairs, and I would just wait for him, and be totally fine. And there was, like, one night in particular, there was, like, several tries in a row where I thought, no, I'm gonna conquer this tonight. I'm gonna get over this. I'm gonna go back up the hill, and I'm gonna be fine. And I think one of those tries, I just ran back down. Another try, he had turned on the hose, because I guess he was, like, washing his hands off or something. I don't know, because there was, like, a garden hose down there. I mistook that as thinking I was hearing a snake. And in my brain, any snake equates to rattlesnake, which equates to, oh my god, I'm gonna die. So ran the fuck back down there, only to find out it was the hose, not a snake, and then felt like a freaking idiot. And then I forget what the third thing was. I think I was more just annoyed with myself for being a big old puss. And I was like, no, I'm gonna go back up the house. And at this point, he's just like, okay, go ahead and do what you want. I don't care. It's like, all right, fine, I will. And I think I'm just gonna sprint it. I'm gonna sprint all the way up that hill. I'm gonna sprint all the way back to the house. I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna look around. I'm not gonna get scared. So I take off up that hill, and I proceed to faceplant in the rocks, because I'm me, and just... 'tis my luck, because, I mean, it's not exactly gravel, it's more of, like, loose rocks, but it's not, like, paved. They're just dumped across this path to both give traction for the horses, to give tractions for, like, if you drive the pickup truck down or up there. It makes it to where it's more sturdy than if it were just loose dirt, right? Or mud, or whatever, depending on the time of year. However, if you're, like, a kid trying to run on that, it does not take much to lose your footing, and now you're falling down these loose rocks, and you're getting scraped the whole way, and I fell. It's just like, you could have just waited for me, you know? I could have. But I didn't. And I thought it was a good idea that day. It was not a good idea that day. So, fast forward about, I don't know, I would say about 10 years. No, it wasn't 10 years. It was more like 19, 20, 21, somewhere in there. He was starting to get to the age where he couldn't really always readily and reliably trust his body to be able to handle walking down and back up that hill. So he gave me a key to the barn and put me in charge of doing the nighttime feeding for the horses. And I think on one level he knew this isn't going to end well. She's not going to deal well with the dark, and she's really not going to deal well with it all alone. And this originally started when he went out of town for the weekend, and he just needed somebody to do it, and for whatever reason my dad didn't, and I was like, I'll do it. And he's like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. I know how to do it. You've been training me since I was a baby, so I mean, I know how to do it. It's fine. So fine. He got... What the hell? Hold on. What was that? Oh. My Tamagotchi evolved. Anyway, so... Sorry. Anyways, so he gives me a key to the barn. And I'm like, alright, I'll just go before it gets totally dark out. It's fine. I believe it was like November. So, I mean, it got dark early. So this is maybe like 4 or something where it's like dusk, but not dark. As long as I can see around me, I'm fine. So, fine. I go, I do the thing, totally fine, no drama. I do it for his whole trip, fine, no drama, because I have timed it out well enough for it to not be dark. It's great. Although, I have to admit, being all on my own and walking that barn, the first thing I'm hearing is like the one horse way off to the one corner of the barn being an impatient little fit for like, hey, where's my food, bitch? And he's like kicking the door because, I mean, Commander was just like so impatient with anything and everything on Earth. He would let you know if you were so much as 5 minutes late to feed him. Anyway. So, hearing that all alone, more than a little unnerving, even without it being totally dark out, but in the barn, till I'd find the light switch, it's dark in there, so it's scary enough, but regardless, it's fine. I know exactly who's doing it without even looking, because he's the only one that would do that, right? So, I complain, but on the other hand, he was a free horse, because Misty was pregnant when we got her. We didn't know she was, so literally... free bonus horse, like within like a month or 2 of having her. But anyway, so he'd be impatient as all get out. I'd feed them. I'd go back, do, you know, no big deal. He comes back from his trip. I was like, honestly, I mean, if you need help, I could do it whenever you want. I could take over the nighttime feedings. It's fine. I don't mind. And he's like, all right, if you're sure. If you're really, really sure. And I was like, I am sure. which was great until I'd, like, get all caught up with stuff online, and then next thing I know, now it's dark. It's like, I did agree to this, didn't I? I definitely did. Okay. It's fine. It's fine. Alright, so I would take my dad's big-ass, like, torch lamp type, light, flashlight, the ones that are, like, this freaking big around, like, you can, like, pull the trigger on it, and it will light up, like, daylight for, like, at least a quarter of a mile. You know, one of those, whatever that's called. Yeah, I would take that along with me the whole way, and be like, I'm taking no chances, and God forbid there's anything out there, I can clock them with the flashlight. Thankfully, it never ended up becoming necessary to have to clock anything with the flashlight, but still, it was one of those things where it's like, the second I'd be too far out of the reach of, like, the street lights being able to light things up, it's like, that thing's going on, and I'm not turning it off till I'm in there and the lights are on, and the second they go off, it's going back on. And all was fine, but it's like, this went on until, at some point, my sister literally stole the barn key from me, and I never saw it again. And that was the end of my being the one in charge of that. Because he decided I must be irresponsible if I lost the fucking barn key. Even though she literally stole it off my wall the first time I ever had a hangover, so she could go make out with a boy in the barn. Yep! So, you know, 20 years later, I have not regained that right, even though my grandpa is now long gone, but barn is still there. So... Anyway, I don't know. It's just a weird thing, though, where it's like, it was a whole ass vibe as a little kid versus as an adult. I'm like, it's kind of no big thing as an adult. But as a kid, it was like this major privilege to get to, like, go turn on the big stadium lights for the arena and ride around in the dark. Like, you know, no big thing, just me riding my pony at, like, 9 p.m. on a school night. Fuck yeah. But, I thought I was hot shit. I really wasn't. On the other hand, the hoity-toity little kids I was going to school with made me feel like I am a redneck because I had horses, and gave me a whole ass complex thinking that. Not knowing that, dumbass, we clearly have more money than you because we're able to afford to have horses on our own property. Go suck it. But anyway, so I did not comprehend that till well into adulthood. Genuinely and truly, I thought we were just, like, low-life scummy earth rednecks, because, we have horses. I shouldn't even, like, tell people we have horses. Oh my god. Yeah, no, I've finally reconciled with that, oh, actually, that was a thing of privilege I didn't realize was even a big deal till the day that I actually said the words out loud, that I've got to be, like, the one little girl on Earth who never had to ask for a pony, because I already had one. And I think that's the day it clicked for me that, holy shit, I come from money, don't I? Anyway, I'm not trying to sound like a little shithead. I'm really not. But I'm just saying that that was the day that it, like, the light bulb went on of, we're kind of a big deal, aren't we? You know, never mind the fact that my grandpa was, like, literally the president of the California State Horsemen's Association for a hell of years, and the years where he wasn't president, he was at least treasurer or the vice president, but, you know, totally no biggie, right? No big deal. But anyway, I'm kind of babbling, so I'm gonna go. You guys know what to do. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you're not already and you'd like to be, click subscribe, hit that notification bell icon so you never miss an upload. Leave comments down below. Make sure you're following my social media accounts, my Facebook fan page, my Twitter, my Instagram, my eBay, my Reddits, everything and more. It's all down below. And if you like what I do here on this channel and you'd like to help support it, the donation link, as always, is down in the description. Get your name on the end card for a month from the time of donating. Anyway, guys, until next time, see ya.